My name is Alexis. I'm the outreach coordinator here at Lincoln's Inn, and today we'll be running through a presentation on routes to the bar, followed by some questions, and then we'll take a short break after that, and then our barrister panelists will come along and you can ask them all of your pressing questions as well. Um, I am sat next to my colleague Aisha, who's going to talk to you guys about scholarships when we get to that section of the presentation. And yeah, I don't know if you'll be here for the questions at the end, but if you have any questions, we'll get them answered, hopefully.
Back.
Yeah, we'll see. But yes, just to let everybody know, this will be recorded. So yeah, try not to shout anything embarrassing if you don't want to know. But other than that, we're just going to kick off, I think. You did fix it. That was
I did fix it.
I loosened it for you. Right. Again, for everybody in the room, for the other half of the audience that arrived just now, my name is Alexis Friday. I'm the outreach coordinator here at Lincoln's Inn. This is my colleague Aisha, who is the scholarships coordinator. And today we will be running through routes to the bar, as well as having some guest barristers towards the second half of the session to sort of talk about their routes to the bar, what a day in their life might look like, and then to answer your questions as well. The event will run in two halves. So as I mentioned, the presentation at the beginning, there'll be a short break in between, and then we've got the barristers coming in afterwards. We're not expecting any fire alarms today, but if the fire alarm does sound, please follow the green signs out of the building via the route that you came in. And then we'll be meeting by the War Memorial, which is outside and then to the left a couple seconds. For those of us joining remotely, thank you so much. Please feel free to chuck your questions in the Q&A section when you have them. And then we will go through those questions when it's appropriate to, probably at the end of the presentation, and again at the end of the panel talk. So yeah, about the Inns of Court. There are 4 Inns of Court. Lincoln's Inn, Inner Temple, Middle Temple, and Gray's. While there's healthy competition between us, we actually work very closely together, basically to uphold the standards across all 4 of the inns. We realize that making the decision as to which of the inns you go to can be quite difficult, but one of the things that we do really try to make sure of is that whichever of the 4 inns you go for, the quality of your experience is as similar and as valuable as possible. We are professional associations for barristers and judges in England and Wales, and we're the only organisations with the power to call those qualified to the bar, essentially. We play a key role in preparing students for call through educational activities, and we support our members as they progress professionally as well. We also have supervisory and disciplinary roles. So if you do really amazing things, we'll definitely be shouting out about it in some sort of newsletter or publication that we put together. And of course, if you do anything wrong, probably shouting out about it less. But you will be having a word with somebody at the inn to talk about the sort of next steps, probably with the inn and somebody from the bar standards board if things get really bad. And each inn has libraries, dining facilities, gardens, accommodations, and a chapel for members. We're also landlords to the chambers and private tenants that live here, many of whom are members. And you may recognize parts of the inn from various sort of like media. We were recently in an advert with was Reese Witherspoon. She was filming in the MCR, which is our bar and restaurant. Have any of you guys seen You? Any You fans? The season where it's in the UK, the library in that is our library, where they filmed all of that. Scenes from Nanny McPhee. The finale of The Apprentice.
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey were in the movie. So yeah, now that you've heard of it, keep an eye out for those red bricks when you're watching your favorite shows. But yeah, very popular filming location. Now, in terms of routes to the bar, I know many of you would have already started looking into this, but to go over it again, you'll need to start with a degree. So most of you will be doing a qualified law degree, or you could do a non-law degree, and then you can complete what's called a conversion course, which is the GDL. Are there any people here thinking about doing the GDL today? Excellent. So yeah, once you finish your degree, you complete your GDL course, which is another year-long course, and then that's when you would join your inn of choice after you completed that part. And then before you start your bar course, usually in that September, yeah, you'll need to submit your application to your inn, and then you start your bar course that September. After you've finished, well, once you've started your bar course, you'll do your qualifying sessions, which are 10 sessions that you'll need to complete at your inn of choice, which I'll get into a little bit. And then once you complete both of those and your bar course, you will be called to the bar, and then you'll go on to do your pupillage. Again, we'll talk about in a little bit. So you can study the bar course sort of as part-time as well. So the part-time bar course allows aspiring barristers to complete their training over a longer period, typically 2 years or more, with part-time attendance. Sometimes you can study on weekends or in the evenings, or sort of less frequently. These are definitely options to explore if you have other commitments that might take up your time, like family or work-based commitments. And yeah, this is sort of the most straightforward sort of diagram of how that all works. So you would do your degree as you would a standard, and then with your bar course provider, you'd sort of agree where your splits would be in terms of your course. But you would do the first part of your course, and then you would then go on to complete the second part, and then you would go on to your pupillage after that, essentially. Where can you study a bar course? So there are currently 10 bar course providers in the UK. Across 19 locations. And applications are made directly to your bar course provider, not through the inns themselves. The application to the inns are handled separately. So yeah, please bear that in mind when you get to that stage in your journey. In terms of seats, there's 3 of you. There's a couple seats here in this row, in the second row. There's one right at the front. There's one over here as well. There's a couple on this side too. Okay. Scholarships. I'll let you have the clicker, but
thank you.
No worries.
So as Alexis introduced me, I'm Aisha. I'm the scholarships coordinator here at the Inn. So I handle all of the behind the scenes of giving out scholarships. So it's the largest source of funding that we have. At the Inn, we give away about, I would say, like $1.5 million in grants, scholarships, and prizes combined throughout the year. All 4 inns do a scholarship. We do a GDL scholarship and we do a bar course scholarship. All of them kind of differ just slightly, but are mostly the same. We give around 100, I would say like 120-ish. It can change. Bar course scholarships a year, and then around 33 GDL scholarships a year. It is incredibly competitive for a scholarship. If I give you the statistics, you wouldn't believe it. For last year, we had about 464 applications. About 234 made it through the SIFT, the interview, and then about 127 were awarded. With the GDL, we don't do a SIFT, so I want to say it was about 67 were interviewed and 33 were awarded. I'll move back onto scholarships, but just to go over our prizes that we have at the Inn. So we have the Buchanan Prize, which is awarded on a rolling basis. Well, it will start to be awarded on a rolling basis. So that's when you complete your bar course. If you have scored over 85%, you'll get £100. No questions asked, no need to fill out any forms. You just need to show us proof from your transcripts that you have 85% or over, and you will be given £100. We also have our Student of the Year award, which is a wig and gown provided by Eden Ravenscroft for the person out of the year's cohort who scores the highest in the bar course. If there is multiple people who score the same, they all get awarded the same thing. And then we have the Newberger and Grinrod prizes for outstanding students from non-Russellbrook universities. It's kind of weird, but that's actually handled by Alexis and the outreach team. We do work in tandem, but there's certain things that are covered by him and certain things that are covered by me. And then we also have the mini pupillage grant scheme, which is also Alexis. So back to scholarships. Like I said, we have our bar course scholarship and we have our GDL scholarship. As Alexis said, GDL scholarships are for those looking to do a law conversion course. It also covers now, there are not traditional GDLs now, there are also like LLM type GDLs, which are confusing, but it's all covered as well. It comes under it. As long as you're doing a course that is not, that you have a degree that is not a law degree and you're doing a course to turn that into a law degree or to get a law degree, you can apply for the GDL. Same with bar course. There are traditional bar course qualifications, but they are also doing an LLM and like postgraduates where you do like a bar practice and an LLM. Those are covered. Whatever it is, it's covered. And if you're not sure, you can just send me an email and I'll sort it out and see if it actually is covered. But most of them are covered now. And we also cover part-time courses in the bar course and two-part courses, which I think only ICA do, which is the Inns of Court College of Advocacy. Is that what ICA stands for?
Oh.
But they do two-part courses where you can do, it's not a traditional part-time course. It is, well, it's kind of not. You might do your first part in September and then like your second part in March the following year. It all depends, but it is covered and it all does come down as a part-time bar course scholarship. In terms of full-time and part-time, if you are doing a part-time or two-part course, you can only apply for 1 year of your course. So if you want to do your first part of your course already and then apply for a scholarship for the second part, you can do that. If you want to apply for the first part and then you'd have to self-fund the second part, you can also do that as well. If you are studying a full-time course, you would just be awarded for the full-time course. So our scholarships are awarded on merit. There's no award values attached to the names. However, the named scholarships do kind of have ranks and tiers. So we have our Mansfield scholarships for bar course, which are our highest. Only 10 of those are awarded. And then we have our Lord Dennings, which are kind of our majors. Sir Mota Singh now as well. And then Tancred scholarships, Mary McMurray scholarships. And then we have our minors, which are Sir Thomas More's. Sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. But yeah, they're ranked, but not valued by rank, if that makes sense. So what we do is we do a means test where you are asked to submit your financial information and our head of education conducts a mean test in his own, I can't tell you the details of the mean test because I don't actually know, but he conducts a mean test and you're awarded by what you declare. So we ask if you have like trust funds, ISAs, savings, any of that we take into account. We also take into account any like debts you may have or things that you will need to repay during your bar course year. We also take that into account. We take into account living costs as well. So it's all done very fairly. I know in previous years, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, they didn't used to do that. They just used to give people random amounts of money. So all the inns have adopted a means process test in order to make it fair for everyone. So also, you don't need to join an in before you apply for your scholarship. However, you cannot apply for multiple scholarships from INs. So you have to really do a lot of research and think about which in you would like to apply for and apply to only one in. We do share applicant names with each other before we do any of our kind of secondary processes, just to make sure people have not had duplicate applications. All the INs differ on their rules regarding what they do if someone has applied to multiple INs. It's Lincoln's Inn rules that we automatically withdraw your application, just because we do ask you on the form, have you applied to any other INs? And if you click no that you haven't, and we find out that you have, it's kind of more of an integrity thing than anything. So it is our policy to automatically withdraw your application. It may be different for other INs, but I'm not too sure on the specific processes of those. Once you are awarded, then you can join the IN. We ask that you don't join the IN before, because if you are awarded, one of the benefits, I thought that was going to be the benefits. One of the benefits of joining the IN is actually that you get free admission. So if you join before, you'd have to pay. You will get a refund, but it might take a bit longer to get that refund processed by our registry team. So we just ask that you apply and wait, because if you are awarded, you get free admission anyway. So here is just a breakdown of kind of our budget. This is kind of a rough budget. So it's about, in total, including prizes, about 1.5 million, which is quite a lot of money. So our maximum award last year was 21,000, and our minimum last year was 1,000. It can change year on year. Sometimes it can go up, sometimes it can go down. So these are not like set values. And again, it is based just on your financial kind of means that you disclose to us. So there's no guarantee on how much you get. It's like person by person. So there we go. So scholarship benefits. So we offer free in admission. You get a discount on qualifying sessions, and you also get free call to the bar. We also have, attached to our bar course scholarships, we have accommodation awards. So at the time of your application, at the end of your application, before you hit submit, there's a little button that says, are you interested in accommodation at the inn? If you are, you click yes. If no, you just leave it blank. And then once we have kind of our awardees, we do it in the fairest way possible to offer our accommodation up to our scholars. There's 14 on-site rooms in kind of shared flats. So there's about 3 people in one flat, and you all have your own room, and then you share a living space, and you share a kitchen, and you share a bathroom. We run on a same-sex policy, so we wouldn't put anyone in a flat that's mixed gendered, just to make everyone feel comfortable. And it's also deducted directly from your scholarship award. So whatever your final award is, you will receive it minus the accommodation award, if that makes sense. In terms of how our kind of payment structure works of the awards, we do it in 2 installments. So if you are starting in September of that year, you will receive half of your payment in September, and then you'll receive the following payment in September of the following year if you're doing a full-time course. If you're a January starter, you'll receive the first installment of your payment in December, and then the following installment in December of the following year. And that is just to ensure that people are actually starting their course and continuing their course. So our application criteria, which is also listed on our website and goes into a bit more detail than it does here. What you are assessed on through the whole process, interview and application, is academic and intellectual attainment, analytical thinking and problem solving, motivation, working with others, advocacy, drive, determination, and resilience. So some of those are tested through our written application only, and some of them are also tested through our interview as well. So the kind of questions differ year on year, what you are questioned on. We like to switch up on both our interviews and our applications. So it's different for everyone year on year. But the only kind of long answer questions you will have on your application is the working with others and the drive, determination, and resilience, which would usually be a question on if you're put in this situation, or give me a time, kind of competency questions like that. And yeah, your motivation is mostly based on the things you have done in terms of preparation for your bar course or your GDL. It may be like mini pupilages, shadowing judges, going to court, and things of that nature, just to show you are interested in pursuing a career at the bar. These are prizes.
Yeah.
Just before I go back on, this, I kind of take you through our interview structure as well. So you will be interviewed by 3 kind of panel members that are made up of the bar and bench members of Lincoln's Inn. You'll have a chair and then 2 panelists. It's about 25 minutes each interview, about 4 minutes per competency, and then you'll be asked to give an oral presentation of 5 minutes. As I said, the questions differ year on year. For GDL, it would be a non-legal topic you'd be asked to present on. And for the bar course, it would be a legal, kind of maybe legal reform topic you'll be asked to present on. They do change year on year, but that is usually kind of the crux, the basics of it. After your interview, you'll be scored, and that is how we kind of differ the minors from the major. We just rank everyone, basically. So so we listed these prizes already, but the only additional one here is the pupillage grants that we offer. And that is for members who are looking to start their pupillage. We do 2 rounds of that at the Inn, 1 in January, and then 1 in June. But that's kind of far from where you guys are at right now. We also do the international and European scholarships as well. That is for our student members. And it is basically you visit one of the European courts for a placement. They can range from about 4 weeks to about 6 months, depending on which one. You kind of go through the same process you do for a scholarship to get one of those, but it's more of a set panel. And you get like the questions in advance. So it's kind of different from regular scholarships, but pretty much the same structure. Oh, back to Alexis.
Awesome. So yeah, going back to the actual bar course itself and what you can expect. As well as the bar course, as I mentioned before, you'll need to complete 10 qualifying sessions. Most people will try and get that done during their bar course year, but we do run more than 10 every year. And if you ever need to do like retakes and things like that, there will still be some running after your sort of like traditional academic term as well. So there will be opportunity for you to get them all done while you get there. So
how long is the qualifying session valid for?
So
if you join as a student member in your 2nd or 3rd year undergrad,
sure,
and do qualifying sessions, how long do they last?
Yeah, sure. So we don't typically allow students who aren't already on the bar course to partake in them for that reason. You want them to be sort of fresh in your mind when you get into like pupillage and things like that. There is a general sort of expiry on your call to the bar. It's 5 years. So you basically need to have everything done within that time in order for it to be valid and all of that as well. So please bear that in mind as well. But yes, qualifying sessions come under 5 different categories. They are ethics, standards and values, advocacy skills, legal knowledge, justice and the rule of law, equality, diversity and inclusion, and management of pupillage, career development, and well-being. Now, essentially the way that these categories come into play are during your bar course year when you are completing them. In order to be called to the bar, you need to complete your 10 sessions, but you need to have at least one of each of these categories within the 10 that you do. So some people like to do it quite evenly, they'll just do 2 of each, and then that's 10. But you could just do like 1 to 4 once, and then like 6 of the 5th one if you want to as well. As long as each of the 5 categories are represented within the 10 that you do, then that should be relevant. Now, the types of things that qualifying sessions can be are lectures, we've got advocacy and ethics workshops, they can be legal research seminars, debating dinners, but we also run residential weekends. So for those of you traveling in from, say, Liverpool or Manchester, we actually run residential weekends on circuit around the country. And they are a great way to kind of do 4 or 5 qualifying sessions over the course of 2 days, 2.5 days across the weekend, which is perfect for those of us who are outside of the city, because it means you don't have to travel back and forth 10 times essentially to get them all done. We also have advocacy and ethics days, which are kind of very similar, sort of a handful of qualifying sessions back to back. There are no formal examinations as part of what the qualifying sessions are. So you'll do all the fun things like your exams and your essays with your bar course provider. So the university will handle those. The qualifying sessions usually just require you to be there and to take part, but there is no like graded score at the end or anything like that. We're just making sure that you're actually in attendance for all of them and taking on all the information that way. So then after you complete your qualifying sessions and your bar course, you'll move on to pupillage. So this is another flowchart, as you can tell. And essentially, your pupillage is split usually into 2 6-month periods. So it's usually a year-long thing. But you've got your first 6 and your second 6. So you'd be called to the bar, you do the first 6 months chambers, then your second 6 months. If you're immediately successful after that, then you can get tenancy at the chambers that you were doing your pupillage at. So you kind of just move from doing the pupillage into working, essentially. You're now like a qualified barrister. If there are any issues for whatever reason, you may have to complete what's called a probationary tenancy. So that would be another 6 months, and that would be most likely at a different chambers. And then when you're successful there, then you would get tenancy at the chambers that you did your last 6 months at, if that makes sense. Again, this is a little bit, well, for some of you, this will be quite a bit away, but it's always good to know exactly what the process looks like, because I know it doesn't come up anywhere near often enough in at universities and things like that. So, yeah. In terms of opportunities and resources, this is just a small handful of the sort of law-related resources that there are available to students like yourselves who are looking to sort of get into law. There are literally, I don't know, tens of forums and websites and social mobility schemes and funds, but just to go over what I've got here, the Bar Council have all sorts of opportunities. I'm going to be at the Bar Council's Pupillage Fair next weekend as well. But they also do a lot of online things that the Inns will participate in, and sometimes they've got their own sort of list of barristers that they work with. They've got the bar placement scheme as well for any of you that are like 16 to 18. But yeah, definitely look at the Bar Council website for opportunities. Big Voice London has a range of opportunities, including mooting competitions and essay prizes. The Calisha Trust has really good guides and information. They also run a handful of sort of like charity events and things too. Prime offer in-person and virtual legal work experience. The Next Step Foundation is great for students who are preparing for study in law at Oxbridge specifically. So I think they've got a sort of tool for, well, probably like a panel of students who've already gone through the process that they kind of work with to help students there. And then we've got the Social Mobility Foundation. They have all sorts of programs and schemes available to students who need it. There are some social mobility criteria related to what they offer, but all of that stuff can be found on their website if you are interested. Now, in terms of advice for the future, I've sort of broken it down into these 5 key points. But obviously, you know, when you speak to the barristers later today, I'm sure they'll have even more sort of detailed responses and things too. But keeping up to date with legal matters is huge when it comes to networking opportunities and even things like the scholarships processes, and you're sort of working your way up and through your career. Being able to speak about current affairs is always going to be valuable. So especially if you're interested in like particularly niche law or legal subject areas, I would definitely recommend keeping an eye on what's going on in those worlds, so that you can speak on them when you get to those points. And even if you don't quite understand them, being able to bring them up and ask questions about them is a great way to start a conversation at the very least as well. Utilizing social media. Now, I'm sure there's going to be thousands of LinkedIn posts made after this session today. But the social media is a great tool, not only for showcasing what you've done and the things that you've achieved, but also in terms of networking. Organizations like Lincoln's Inn and various chambers will post all of their opportunities on LinkedIn. Any barristers that you might meet any barristers that you might meet will also post and share opportunities that are relevant as well. And also it's great to sort of start building up that Rolodex of names and people that you might want to collaborate with and speak to in the near future. Get yourself out here. Joining events and webinars like this are a great start. But there are so many things happening in the legal world, some of them at your own universities or at clubs nearby. Getting involved in things like your sort of like mooting competitions and essay competitions and networking events, insight days, other sort of open days that chambers might be running. Again, are a great way to sort of get yourself familiar with the environment, and also just to make it a little bit less nerve-wracking. I know when I started working here, I didn't have much legal experience at all, and you kind of start to build it up a little bit in your head. But once you're in those spaces more regularly, you start to feel a little bit more familiar and comfortable, and it does help a lot with the processes and sort of building your confidence as you sort of rise up through the ranks as well. Gaining experience is also hugely valuable. Work experience opportunities, mini pupillages, marshalling schemes. These things exist everywhere. So if you are able to take part in them, please do. I think they're a great way to, well, just get the practical experience that you might need. It's also great for fact finding. So I'm sure many of you will have interests in very specific areas of the law, maybe not very specific, but specific areas of the law. And being able to do mini pupillages in those areas, and then also areas that you're maybe less interested in, can give you a really well-rounded view of the opportunities and what life at the bar might be like for you, regardless of which route you end up choosing. And then utilizing your societies. Societies are a great way to sort of build relationships with the ends. I know I reach out to as many of the law, bar, mooting, societies that I can to share information and opportunities. But also if they are running events, and a lot of them sort of run trips like London, for example, for competitions and things like that. It's a great way to build on your network and actually to be around and with other students who are in a similar situation as you as well.
Just to add on to that, a lot of things that I come across on like our successful scholars applications where they just take time to literally just go to courts. So a lot of them will do visits to like the Old Bailey, which is absolutely free for anyone to go and watch a case. You can go and watch any case you like to in a lot of courts. And it just, again, like Alexis says, will build on your fact finding. You'll know a bit more about the cases that are going on and that are relevant right now. And it also just shows your motivation as well when it comes time to apply for certain things. You'll have a bit more experience under your belt, and it's absolutely free.
Excellent. Right. Well, that's pretty much all for me. So in the next few minutes or so, we'll take a little break. But now is the perfect time to ask any questions. So if you're online, please put your questions in the Q&A section. And if you're here in person, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay. Oh yeah. Lorenzo, can I have the roaming mic, please? Is it roaming or roving?
Roving.
Is it actually?
Yes.
What does roving mean?
He's moving around swiftly.
Must be. Excellent. Can we? Oh, hello. Sorry, while we're getting that set up, we'll start. Can we start at the back? Just pass it to the back row, and they should pass it down. So if you have any questions, and you're raise them down so that we don't miss you on the way down. Yes.
Thank you. May I ask about, you mentioned that we could only apply for the bar scholarship once, but what if someone acquired other working experiences or pursued further studies? Would they be able to apply again with a new experience?
So do you mean if you're unsuccessful the first time around?
Yes.
If you're unsuccessful the first time around, we absolutely encourage you to apply again. There's a lot of our members who it took a couple of times for them to get a scholarship. So we absolutely encourage it. As I said, it's really competitive. So it doesn't even kind of speak on you guys as a person.
I see. Thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah, that works. Yeah. So we just get to
Hi. Just a question about the scholarships. I was told that there is a correlation between getting a scholarship and then later getting to a pupillage scheme. So what would you say about that? And then if you never ever get a scholarship?
So I think that's a bit of a controversial one. I think there are a lot of barristers that you will talk to that might tell you that, but I feel like it's a kind of outdated kind of rhetoric. So I don't like to encourage that. I think it is good for you to secure a scholarship, but I don't think that is the only thing that pupillage panels are looking for anymore. So I wouldn't kind of take that and have that stuck in your mind, like, and if you don't get a scholarship, you're not successful, that you won't get pupillage, because it's absolutely not true.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah.
Before I start, I just want to say thank you so much for all the information you guys shared. It was really useful. I'm a second year student, and I don't really know much about the bar, but you guys mentioned how there's no traditional exams and stuff for the bar. I don't know if you guys already mentioned it, but how do they mark it? Because I remember about scholarships wise, you guys would award scholarships like high mark students. I'm not sure if I remember that right, but
So to clarify, there are exams and
Okay.
essays as part of your bar course, but you will do those with your bar course provider.
Okay.
So what the Inn provides with the qualifying sessions, there's no sort of formal exams or anything related to those specifically, but the rest of it is still sort of graded as a sort of any sort of post-grad course would be.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. Thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah.
Hello, my question's to do with pupillage. So I know the window for the pupillage application is before we've even sat the first year exams for the bar. So what's the process in accepting applications for the pupillage, and how do the Inns then help us accommodate that? Is there any networking or meeting of barristers that will help us with that?
Sure. So I know that as part of the membership of the Inn, the membership department, they run something called the Pupillage Foundation Scheme, which is for people who are unsuccessful the first time. So the pupillage isn't handled by the Inns themselves. There's a pupillage portal that you would sort of submit your applications to. If you are unsuccessful ever in that, then you can reach out to them. We run things like networking and sort of other schemes to help students who were previously unsuccessful, to help them sort of increase and improve their chances the
Interview
next time
prep,
around. Yeah, interview prep.
mentorship, stuff like that.
Exactly. So the reason why we wait is one, many members, even some of the most successful barristers that I work with, were unsuccessful the first or maybe even the second time when it came around to applying for pupillage and things like that. And it's just, it's better suited once you've been through the process to then understand where things maybe have gone wrong or where you can improve after you've taken part in that. I'm sure there are schemes and programs, maybe outside of the ends in particular, that do help with this kind of thing. But in terms of what we offer specifically, yeah, we have our PFS scheme, which is for those who are unsuccessful at least once.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
No worries. I'm going to take a couple of these questions from online. So if you guys just want to bear with me 1 second. One for Aisha. Is there a word limit on essay submitted for the scholarship application?
So we do have word limits on our questions. For our long answer questions, I really don't know that off the top of my head. But once you do start your application, which you have 9 weeks to apply for, so you can even get in there nice and early and look at all the questions and look at all the word counts, and a lot of people like to write them on a separate document and then paste them over. You have quite a lot of time to do that. I can't tell you the numbers off the top of my head, sorry guys. It's 400.
Don't use AI.
And don't use AI.
Don't use AI, ever. Right. Katie online says, I'm already a member of the N. Can I still apply for a scholarship there? You can, as long as you haven't already started your bar course. Is that right?
Yeah, as long as you haven't started your bar course, you can apply. You would, if you are successful and you are already a member, like I said before, you will get a refund on your membership fee.
I got a question about the GDL. How much is the GDL typically?
So it ranges from provider to provider. I think the most that I've seen the GDL be is about £15,000, but it ranges from your different providers and also where you do your GDL in the country.
And yeah, in terms of if the scholarship is inclusive of the fees, it will depend on the amount that you receive, essentially.
Yeah, so our scholarships are made. It's like the ultimate goal is to help you with your fees. You may find you have some left over for other things, but ultimately our kind of goal is to reduce everyone's shortfall of their fees, basically.
Lovely. Josh says, you mentioned scholarships are before we apply to an inn. At what stage prior to doing the bar course do we apply to an inn itself? So if you are applying for the bar course, the recommendation is that you've submitted your application to join the inn no less than 12 weeks before the start of your bar course. So if you're starting in September, I think that works out to be about April, May. So yeah, just make sure that's all in place so that your bar course providers can also do the things that they need to do ahead of your start date. Right, you've got the microphone, so I assume you've got a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, with regards to qualifying sessions,
Yeah.
can we, so I've just recently graduated in law. I'm taking a gap year and applying next year. Can I start my qualifying sessions now?
Yeah, so we usually don't encourage that just because if you look at the lecture theatre now, it's pretty full. And with the qualifying sessions, they do need to be booked. So we usually reserve them for those who have already started their bar course, mainly because, as mentioned before, there is a sort of 5-year limit. So we need to give those who have already sort of started that process as much time to get everything done. So yeah, we don't usually encourage students to take part before they start the bar course. Excellent. There you go. We'll get the mic back to you. So. Go for it.
Yeah, here's the mic.
Go ahead. Cheers. My question is about the GDL scholarship.
Okay.
And I was wondering if I wanted to start my conversion course in September of 2026, would I be applying for the intake of this May, for the deadline of this May?
Yes, so if So for GDL, you need to apply in the May of that year that you want to start your course. So it would be May 2026 that you need to apply by. For bar course, it's kind of different. You need to apply the year before you want to start your course. So the September before. So if you want to start in September 2026, you need to apply to this current round. And we do label the bar course scholarships as such. So even though they're open in September of 2025, which is the current round now, they are for September 2026. So please do note that down. You need to apply a year in advance for bar course. For GDL, same year.
Thank you. I'm a non-law student at UCL, and I was just wondering for a bit more clarity with the GDL. What kind of things are you seeing with the successful applicants? Have most of them got firsts? Have they got mini pupillage experience? How do you sort of weight it with regards to kind of academic excellence and then versus experience?
So I don't personally sift through any of our applications. That is done by members of our scholarships committee, which is made up of our bar members. So this might be a good question to save for when you have a panel, because I know we have Jack here who is on our scholarships committee, and he'll be able to answer that a bit more better than me.
Has it got a red light on it?
Press the button.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Aisha mentioned a really great comment about showing motivation in a way which is more accessible, because we know that competition for things like many people is really hard. Those of us who are interested in things like family bar, or you obviously going to what isn't open to us because of being sure. Do you have any advice about those of us who are interested in things that aren't accessible?
I would say your best bet is to network. That I think there's a lot of barristers that are open to helping people kind of in like, what's the word that I'm looking for? People that are in spaces where they're not maybe like kind of directly involved with any barristers or know any barristers. I think there are a lot of members of the bar that are able and willing and want to work with people and mentor them. That's what I've seen. A lot of our members are open to having conversations. So again, it's trying to put yourself in these positions and these spaces with people that are relevant to you. I know like the Young Bar Association, they do like a lot of networking events as well and things like that. So it's best to just try and do your research on your kind of area of law and look for opportunities like that. And then just talk to people, like put yourself out there, put your best foot forward. Don't be shy, don't be scared, because you'll find a lot of them have been in your position as well. I know when people think of like barristers, they think, you know, silver spoon, but they're not all like that. There's like a good few that are, everyone's very down to earth and willing to have a conversation is what I found.
Excellent. We'll do one more.
Hello. So I am a member here now, and I'm applying for my bar scholarship this year. So 2.5 weeks left, so hopefully I'll get my refund. But in terms of the people that won or were awarded the Mansfield Prize in the last year, you see that quite a few of them have a BCL, which is obviously a very, very strong academic kind of background. So in terms of kind of putting things that you haven't quite done yet, in the sense of at the moment I'm doing family law moots, I'm doing essay prizes, et cetera, but I haven't actually received the eventual kind of the result. Can I still put that in my application, or is it only things that I've achieved and have the result of so far?
Yeah, so you can put things that you are currently working on, and just make it clear that you know, these are things that are yet to be awarded, or mini pupillages you are yet to start, and then you'll have the opportunity to expand on them during your interview.
Excellent. There will be plenty of time to ask some more questions towards the end of the second half of the session. But for now, we're going to take a short break. So we'll call it 5 minutes. So back in here about 4:03. And if you need to use the toilet or anything, please do so now. And then we'll come back for the second half of the session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. As you can see, I'm not sat here on my own or with Aisha anymore, but I've got two other people here who I've already told you are the members of our barrister panel today. So we've got Jack and Emma, who are going to tell us a little bit about their journeys to the bar, and maybe a little bit about what their sort of day-to-day looks like. And then we'll be opening the floor back up again for some Q&As at the end. Did you decide who wanted to go first?
Honey, I'm going
Jack
first.
is going first.
Honey, I'm going first.
Lovely. Well then, Jack,
Yeah.
I'll let you start.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Meek. I'm a barrister at the UK Government Legal Department. I'm very conscious that, judging by the previous session, you have lots of questions, so I will try and keep my introduction as brief as possible, bearing in mind that I can talk for Ireland. And then you can ask the questions you want to ask, and I'm sure that'll sort of pull apart some of the biographical detail that might be of some interest to you. If it's not, apologies in advance for wasting your time this afternoon. So I'm originally from Northern Ireland, and I was called to the bar at this in 2013. And I originally studied law, having gone to a state grammar school back home, because the way the system works is slightly different than over here. Studied law at Queen's University Belfast, did a year's study abroad in the United States on a business program, completed my degree, studied a human rights master's, and then came across from the wee island to the big island to study for my bar finals. And so it was called in 2013, and then sort of in a parallel universe, I wish I could tell you that I sprang straight from bar course into pupillage, but I entered what I call the wilderness years, in the sense that pupillage was not forthcoming, and indeed it took me sort of 5 or 6 years, 6 years if you include applying whilst I was on the bar course scheme. I don't tell you that to frighten you, I tell you that in a perverse way to give you some sort of hope. If you are concerned about the statistics, believe me that if you are really wanting to pursue a career at the bar and you persevere, there is no reason, no matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, that you cannot make a success in this profession, as I hope in some small way I am demonstrative of. So I was called to the bar, as I say, here in 2013. I then studied for the New York bar and qualified there subsequently before undertaking a job as a paralegal in Herbert Smith, what was then Herbert Smith Freehills. I think they've had another named partner added to their letterhead since. I really probably should keep up with that. And then I won a scholarship from this inn to go and work at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg before coming back and working for 5 years in Thomson Reuters practical law, covering dispute resolution, arbitration, and then the Brexit negotiations as they were unfolding at the time. And from there, I finally secured my pupillage with the Government Legal Department, which I first heard about as a student at an event like this whenever I was studying for the bar. And ultimately that just really resonated with my interest both in law and politics, partly shaped by the fact that I was born into the Troubles in Northern Ireland, came of age during the peace process, and therefore politics, the law, it's always just been in the background of my upbringing. So it's perhaps quite natural that I would gravitate towards that side of law if you were to press me as to why I have a liking for public law and government. So anyway, I've been working at the government for the last for the last 5 years. Did my pupillage there, was seconded to chambers, and I've covered a vast a range of stuff already in the 5 years that I've been in practice. So immigration litigation, commercial chancery, Brexit negotiations, commercial law, international environmental law, and now currently I work in public inquiries. So that's just a very, hopefully, brief summary of where I've been and how I've got to this point. I won't delay any further, and I'll hand you over to Emma, and obviously you can ask any questions you want, and I'll try my best to answer with as much candor as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You've got a very government-heavy panel today. My name's Emma. I grew up in Huddersfield, so West Yorkshire. I studied at Durham. That was a straight law degree. I then did a Master's of Jurisprudence at Durham during COVID because it seemed like quite a good thing to do, to write a thesis whilst you can't have any face-to-face contact hours. Straight after that, I got a scholarship with this for the bar course, and I had a residential scholarship. So my first year living in London was living just across the square in the inn, which was obviously an amazing experience and allowed me to create real connections within the inn and create new routes in London, which I really appreciated. I then went straight into pupillage, and I did my pupillage at the Government Legal Department as well. I did my secondment at Cornerstone Barristers. I stayed at the government for a further year, and then I moved to the self-employed bar. So I now practice in public law and human rights at the 36 group, 36 public and human rights. The way that our chambers is structured is it's a big chambers, but we're splitting to a family team, a crime team, a public law and human rights team, and a commercial team. Day to day now, I would say that my main practice areas are homelessness, immigration work, which covers a broad range of things, judicial review, mainly in housing, homelessness, immigration, and some education law and court of protection work. So if you have any questions about the self-employed bar, or indeed the comparison between the employed bar and the self-employed bar, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But I think I'll leave most of the session to questions, which was the idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can I get a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you very much. Are the mics already out and about? Or are they back with Lorenzo? If you have any questions, please raise your hands in preparation. I know it's a start. If you remember them.
I think just while we're waiting for a microphone, I picked up there was a question on motivation, I think, before the session, and the buck has passed to me, which is fine, because I sort of waved. And somebody else, did yourself ask the question about what to include on the form. So I meant to say, as part of my introduction, I'm quite heavily involved actually with a lot of the work in this as a volunteer in various respects. In one of those roles, I sit on the scholarships committee as a representative of the bar representation committee. I can fill you in with the details. You don't need to worry about that just at the moment. But the question about motivation, I think, is an interesting one, because I think sometimes whenever you're approaching the form, especially if you are coming from sort of a background which is where you don't know anyone in law, you're coming to this completely afresh, and you see the forms and you think, oh, there's a special technique I must adopt. There's a way of answering this question, and I therefore must abide by some unwritten rules that I don't know. And therefore what happens is you second guess the question, and you end up writing a really generic answer of what you think the answer to the question should be, when actually, if you're being asked a question about, say, motivation, go back to first principles and ask yourself, why do you want to do this, and be honest on the form about those reflections, because there will be opportunities later on in the form to go into your experiences, what you've done, what you've learned, how you can apply it going forward. So the first thing on motivation is to think, why is it that you are sitting here contemplating a career at the bar? And then the second prong, in my opinion, about the questions around motivation are to do with what you understand about the bar. And the only way you can demonstrate what you understand about the bar is by having conducted some research, or gone out and done many pupillages or other experiences, or come to events like this and ask us questions. So hopefully that helps address the question you had on motivation. And then I think you asked yourself about the types of experiences to put on the form. I mean, ultimately, I'm not going to say this absolutely include in the form, this don't include on the form. It's really about the way in which you present the information. And what perhaps ties the two questions together was about sort of, other people might have done the BCL or whatever else. Like, you're not in control of that. You're only in control of the things that you have been doing, and therefore you want to present those in as best a way as possible. And there are certain techniques that you can adopt, a three-pronged approach. If it's tell us sort of what have you done, what skills do you have. It's like, well, here's skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, give the argument and the evidence. Or if it's describe the time you did something, then that automatically in your head should be STAR criteria. What was the situation, the overall context, what's the task that I was given, what actions did I take, and then what was the result. And that's sort of your basic methodology to approach some of the questions on the form. So hopefully that addresses the couple of questions we had before. Correct.
So before we go to the audience, I'm going to ask a few online. So Rochelle asked, what drew you both to Lincoln's Inn over the other inns of court? Emma?
For me, this is going to sound terrible, but it was a slightly tactical decision. At the time, Lincoln's Inn did a paper sift, and I thought that my paper application would be strong enough to get through that initial sift, and therefore I'd have already beaten out some other people by the time it got to interview stage, which is not the flowery answer that a lot of people might expect. And, you know, the amazing architecture and the fact that everyone I've met here is lovely, that all came after for me. So I have many reasons why you should now apply to Lincoln's, and I'm incredibly biased now, but at the time it was a far more tactical consideration than that. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm from Huddersfield, West Yorkshire. I don't have any family at the bar. I don't have any family in the south of England, but I knew that I wanted to practice in public law, and those kind of opportunities were primarily in London. So I knew that I wanted to move to London, and at the time, and I think still is the case, Lincoln's Inn and Gray's Inn are the only 2 inns that do residential scholarships. So that was a big factor in my decision making. But as I say, that sounds a bit callous. I'm sorry.
I know Anna likes asking me this question because she knows what my answer is, and there's again 2 sort of elements to it. There's the short version of it, which is I joined Lincoln's Inn because I met a girl at the time in a relationship which subsequently ended in no small part due to pursuing a career at the bar. It's okay. I married somebody else, and I'm all the better for it. No offense to who the girl I met at the time. I'm sure she's very happy too. The more serious answer to the question is, whenever I was a student, this was sort of my first introduction to the bar in England. I came across for a Moodian competition, which is where I met the girl, and I sort of came across to one of the university evenings, and I was just really impressed. And I didn't sort of again, partly the ignorance of not really understanding the process coming from outside, no sort of family connection in law, you know, first generation to go to university. I didn't apply for a scholarship here, and therefore I got a scholarship from my institution in Manchester, where I studied the bar course. But you know, hopefully the things that I've done within the inn has more than made up for that over time. So I think the serious point to be made is that there is no right or wrong answer to which inn. I think you just get a feeling for it, whether it's a much more sort of intelligent way of approaching things than it was for me. But each inn offers similar services. I'm sure you heard that in the first part of the session, and I'm sure they won't take offense if you decide upon hearing us speak this afternoon, you decide to sort of check out Middle, Inner, Gray's Inn and think actually one of them will suit me better. It's all similar. They will be your professional home going forward.
And just one more online quickly. This is a twofer. So the first is, what are the main differences between self-employed and employed bar? And then added on to that, working with the government legal department, what is the environment like? Do you want to take the first part?
Shall I take the first part and you go for the second?
Sure.
Maybe it makes more sense to start with the government legal department, because then the difference is a bit clearer.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, the government legal department, you are employed directly. So you're an employed barrister, which is sort of the minority of barristers that practice in the country. You do get the opportunity to move around quite a bit, and in your early years there are specific career sort of development programs you're encouraged to take part in, so that you can sit within different teams doing different work, and the way I describe it is, you it's not that you're a generalist, you sort of become a specialist in really niche areas of law that have no, sort of clear relationship to each other as you move around. But it makes for a very interesting working environment, because if you get bored with one area, in the worst case scenario, you can move and sort of develop specialism or interest elsewhere. It's a much more probably collaborative process. I have, obviously I did sort of part of my pupillage in chambers, so I have that to compare it to, but I won't trample on that part of the question. But you work within teams. The government employs both solicitors and barristers. Most of your colleagues will be qualified as solicitors. First and foremost, everyone is a government lawyer, is sort of working towards a goal, which is to help the government to govern well within the rule of law. We are civil servants, so we are not only bound by sort of BSB, in my case, Solicitors Regulation Authority for solicitors, but the Civil Service Code as well. So we are, we have no political affiliation in terms of the work we're doing. We leave that at the door and serve whichever government of the day, as any barrister would serve the instructions of any client. And just from a purely sort of personal point of view, it's a really nice place to work. Every team I've worked for, even if I find some work more interesting than others, I don't have a bad thing to say about any of the people, any of the teams that I've worked with. It's a very collaborative, open environment, and it encourages questions. It's very much about continued learning and sort of helping and giving back. And in a way, it sort of mirrors the type of work I do on a voluntary basis with the Inn here. Then there's a practical side with some of the nice things that I don't have to worry about being an employed barrister. But if you want me to bore you about those sort of details, I can later on.
Yes, so as I say, I worked for the government for 2 years. Whilst I was in the government, I did 4 seats. So what Jack says about moving around a lot within the government is completely true. I worked within immigration. I went on as a comment to chambers. I went to the Office of Parliamentary Counsel, which is the team that drafts primary legislation, and I was in the Department for Business and Trade. So all of that experience was gathered within 2 years of government. And I completely agree with everything that Jack has said about the government legal department. My day-to-day at the GLD would be, it would in general be a 9 to 5:30, and I think that is a huge benefit. You are working with really talented colleagues and you're working on bigger projects. It's the turnaround for work is not comparable to the turnaround of work at the self-employed bar. So that's a real benefit, I think, of government work. And complexity. At a very early stage, you're doing very complicated things on very significant matters. Whereas when you're at the junior side of the self-employed bar, you shouldn't be expecting to touch those kind of cases. So I think that would be another GLD and employed bar pro. In public law in particular, I'd say I'm now in court 2 or 3 times a week, whereas compared to my criminal colleagues, they'll be in court every day. Some commercial bar colleagues, it could be every few weeks, but I think that is something that's important to think about when you're thinking about the self-employed bar. The lifestyle and what that really looks like will really vary from area to area. So when I'm speaking about the comparison of the employed bar and the self-employed bar, that is purely in the context of my public law practice. But that could look very different to colleagues who are doing different areas of law, or even still in public law, but really specialising in something slightly different. I really like the split of work that I have at the self-employed bar. As I say, some court time, but I also get enough time to do written work, so longer advice work, advising local authorities or individuals. The big difference for me is I'm able to represent individuals now in my public law practice. So obviously, when you are working for the government legal department, you will always be on the side of the government. I now do both sides, and I really enjoy that flexibility.
There is an exception now, if you want me to come to it.
Okay, and hours-wise, another win for the employed bar, I think. My hours are erratic and definitely worse than they were, but the flexibility of the self-employed bar is I think, a big pro. So if I am not in court, as I'm not this afternoon, I have time to come and engage with the inn. You can engage with other hobbies. A life outside of the bar is really important. And I think if you are someone that is quite self-disciplined and you do enjoy doing things outside of your usual work, that flexibility of the self-employed bar is a lot of fun, and the independence of it. And Jack will correct me about
no,
no.
The only exception was, and I wouldn't have thought about it only because I work currently in public inquiries. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously your client is the government, but public inquiry, for those who don't know, and I'm sure you all do, so something has happened, sort of that is newsworthy, or something's gone wrong, and so the government will announce an inquiry to sort of do a deep dive investigation. And if you are part of the inquiry team, you have, quite a bit of a degree of independence, because you're sort of looking into, perhaps something that has happened within a body of the state. So that was the only thing I was thinking of whenever you mentioned. But no, generally, of course, you're absolutely right. Your client is the government.
Lovely. And a couple of microphones already exist in the wild. So is there one at the back? Is that right? Have you got a microphone?
Somebody write it back to us.
Someone at the back.
Yeah, is it working?
Hello.
Yes. Okay, sorry. I didn't see where the other one was, but we'll start at the back.
Yeah, so hi, I just started my LLB. So could you tell me, are there any skills like which would be better for me to become a barrister? Can you tell any skills which would be like beneficial to me as becoming a barrister?
Skill for barrister.
Skills for a barrister in terms of what you could do at university to build those skills, or the types of skills that you'll need?
To be fair, I just started my LLB, so any like suggestion would be better.
I think at university, I focused on getting a good degree, so showing and growing that intellectual ability that you will need for the bar. I think it's very easy to panic too early about the bar. As Jack spoke about earlier, it's a marathon, not a sprint, so don't wear yourself out really overloading yourself if you're at undergraduate stage. Make sure that you're getting a good education, whether that be in law and you're going to convert, not in law and you're going to convert, or a straight law degree, but really engaging with your degree and making sure that you're focusing on that is the primary aim of going to university. But I would say that whilst I was there, I made sure that I was also volunteering, which made sure that I was building interpersonal skills. I took any opportunity I could to engage with advocacy, if that was giving school assemblies to children in the Northeast, or doing the typical debating, mooting, anything like that. That's really helpful in building skills for the bar, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Is there a second microphone out there? Yes, go for it.
I mean, first of all, thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Jack and Emma, for imparting the knowledge that you've imparted. Before just moving to my questions, and I just have one comment to actually make on the general environment, that this profession started as a male-dominant profession. By looking at this room, when I see females more than the males and people from different areas around the world, it's quite heartwarming, I think. I think that's one of the that marks the success of not only this inn, but also the bar in general. But coming to my question, actually, it's regarding, I have two questions actually, now another one. So the first one is regarding the process of the GDL scholarship. So as a non-law student, for example, if I walk into the room of that interview, what expectations would the panel have from a non-law student, and especially the part where you have to present your presentation? For example, that on a non-legal topic, what could be the jurisdictions of that? And the second question is particularly to Ms. Emma regarding the immigration law that you practice. And it's regarding the recent white paper that has been published, in which the term for visa has been extended for getting a passport, and the PSW has been decreased as well. So what impacts do you think does that have on the immigration law in general?
Take the first.
Yeah, of course.
Very aware now that I am the outward sort of stereotype of what a barrister might look like traditionally, even though I don't come from sort of a background, but I think you're absolutely right. And actually, thank you for raising the comment about the diversity, because I think there is still a long way to go, but it is definitely the case that the bar, the Inns, and certainly GLD, for example, actively is trying to diversify, because the reality is there are so many brilliant prospective barristers out there who simply haven't had opportunities to date. And I think it is true that, you know, there's still, if you go onto certain chambers websites in particular, you will still see a preponderance of a certain type of person with a certain type of educational background, for example. I'll say no more at the risk of becoming political. But I think that the bar, it's making good inroads, but you're right to raise it, and I'm very passionate about access to the bar. In terms of GDL scholarships expectations, I sit on scholarship interview panels for the GDL and for the bar course, and the Euro group, actually, the scholarships for the European placements. And I sit there having studied a law degree primarily, but I don't have any preconceived idea of people coming in for GDLs. I mean, for a start, if you're coming in for GDL scholarship, we know that you haven't studied law as your primary topic anyway. But even later on, if you're coming for bar course scholarships, I mean, I remember being a bar course student and somebody coming in to speak to us, somebody from the profession came in and said, right, how many of you studied law? And about half the room put their hands up, and then said, right, how many of you actually studied a degree you enjoyed studying? And then the other half of the room put their hand up. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And I don't regret studying law, because actually I got to do elective modules, which helped me to sort of explore specific subjects that were of interest to me. But at the same time, I just think if you are interested in something, study, do well at it, you get as high a mark as you can, and that will look good. Again, it's the way you sell the experience. I mean, I'm trying to offer encouragement that says, please don't be fazed by if you haven't come from a legal background. You know, I'd say it's a pretty even split. And to be honest, whenever I meet other barristers, I don't think I've ever asked, sort of in like normal conversation, what subject did you study? I don't think it really ever factors into sort of consideration. The assumption is that you are educated people from whatever walk of life. In terms of the question, with the risk of giving away trade secrets, all I can say is from personal experience, if you are told, please present on a non-law topic, just make it interesting. Like, don't come in and think, oh, these are all sort of stuffy professional people, and therefore I must come up with some really sort of just dull. I'm going to be sounding really politically incorrect here, but just don't be afraid to make it interesting. Come at it from left field. You know, some of the best ones that I've seen were on. Well, I probably shouldn't go into trade secrets, but you know, just things that are completely I would never have thought of, or a topic that I had absolutely no foreknowledge of whatsoever. And you can be as far out of left field as possible. I think sometimes you can trip yourself up by thinking, I must do this in a certain way, in the same way I was alluding to the questions on the form. Bear in mind, we see lots of candidates and you want to stand out, and sometimes the easiest way of standing out is doing something that completely takes us by surprise, which is not to say come in and just like surprise and then like don't perform well in the interview. But if you come in and there's something which is some sort of a novelty in what you're presenting, it means whenever we come to mark and then sort of have a discussion, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that person there, the one that did this, let's take a closer look at what we've noted down. So hopefully that's some food for thought.
On the white paper, you haven't come to hear my political views, so I think I'll keep that quite broad brush. But I think in general, it is indicative of the direction immigration law is moving, and in general, immigration law moves very quickly. So I think that's something about the area that I do enjoy. Sometimes the changes are for the better, sometimes they are not. But as a legal area, it's something that I do really enjoy about public law in general, but specifically immigration law, having to stay on top of developments that are very politically significant, and working on things that are quite frequently in the news is interesting. But that's my way of completely sidestepping your question and just talking about immigration law in general.
Excellent. Raised hands, please. We've got a microphone. But can you pass it to this lady in this row here with the glasses on her head, please? Yeah, just up here. Sorry, I'll go in the wrong direction. Back. Yeah, sorry. Gentleman on the right, do you want to ask your question?
It's a race.
I'm not used to keeping track of two microphones. It's a very complicated process. Go for it.
First of all, thank you both for taking your time out to be with us this afternoon. Greatly appreciated. I just have a couple of questions, if that's okay. It's two questions. The first one is, as someone who's more interested in the employed bar, specifically Army Legal Service, I haven't really understood the role of chambers too much and how it impacts the sort of your day-to-day. Doesn't really make much sense to me. And then also, so if you could just expand on that in some detail. The second question was the impact of non-legal experience. So on scholarships and pupillage applications, and how subject selection at university may impact sort of that process as well.
Shall I take the first and you take the second? Does that make sense?
Do you want to do it in reverse order, or do you want to do it in that order?
No, that's fine. You go.
Yeah. So on the question then again about what to put down on forms, at the risk of sort of sounding trite, it is about sort of how you present it. There is no right or wrong thing. If you are asked, give an example of the time, if you have an example which is non-legal but demonstrates the capability, the skills, that is a better fit for for demonstrating your capability, then absolutely go with it. And you can sort of learn the techniques, as I was alluding to earlier, about structure, whether it's 3 points or the STAR criteria. Typically, if you get a question which is describe a time when you did something, or you would pick one example and go through it in depth. And in my experience sitting on panels as well, a good panel should let you speak for the vast majority of the time. And if you are being interrupted and being asked follow-up questions, the clue might be that they are trying to help you develop your answer. Whereas if you sort of speak fluidly and sort of give a really substantive answer and you get no follow-ups, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So think about it. Don't worry about if it's a non-legal example, if it answers the question that you're being asked. In terms of the topics you studied at university, again, whenever maybe I'm doing this incorrectly, but I don't think I've ever really paid attention to it in a form unless the candidate specifically brings it into evidence in answer to a question on, well, whenever I was studying this or did an essay on this or was doing a debate or moot on this, but there's no right or wrong thing. I think the key thing is no matter what you choose to study, you will put yourself in the best position possible if you can maximize your grades. I'm saying this is something I got a 2-1 in my undergraduate degree. I then got a distinction first in my master's, and therefore sort of having the master's sort of helped to supplement the marking bracket. But basically for the score criteria, you've different brackets for different categories of question, and the more you can do to maximize your academic achievement, for example, the better opportunity you'll have of automatically slotting into the higher brackets, for example. And but topic, I wouldn't worry too much. Do what interests you, because you'll probably perform better at it.
I think just adding to that very slightly on the non-legal experience, I think that ties a bit back into what you're saying about surprise and interview. Novelty can come through non-legal experience perhaps a little easier than it can through legal experience. So there will be lots of people that are using mooting, debating as examples of advocacy skills. Those are great things and you should absolutely be doing them. But if you can talk about something entirely different when demonstrating that skill, it could actually be something that helps your form stand out a little. So I'd say that that would be a plus to making sure that you do talk about non-legal experience as well. The role of chambers. I describe this to my parents who know nothing about the bar as kind of like working like a hairdresser's. So where hairdressers, they have the shop front and they pay the electricity and the water bill, but the individual self-employed hairdresser can pay for the chair. And that chair means that there's clients that sat there. They might be coming to see that particular hairdresser, but they might just be coming to walk into the hairdresser's shop. It kind of works the same for us. So a client could approach chambers and ask for me specifically because I've worked with them before, or they've seen a seminar I've done or a LinkedIn post, or they could just approach my chambers and say, we have an asylum appeal and we need counsel on Friday. Who do you have available? And they can put my name forward. So a key role of chambers is about finding and keeping clients, but we also, it's the infrastructure around you really. So we will put on events, we'll do networking event with solicitors together. They're your professional family in a sense. So although you are self-employed, a lot of my colleagues from chambers are very supportive. If I have a question about a case I haven't done before, I know they have particular experience in that area, they'll always be there to answer questions. Which is my chambers is a very supportive environment, so I'd say that that's a plus. But it's not as collegiate as the government legal department is, for example. Roles of chambers, yeah, events, diary. They manage my diary, so you have clerks that are there who will book the hearings into your diary. It's not for you to keep on top of all of that by yourself. That's done electronically. And the clerks are also the ones that will be chasing your fees and following up on maybe more administrative matters. So that's kind of the role of chambers, to provide a bit of support, but you are there as an independent.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Hello. If I would appreciate if you could answer this question in light of your experiences at both the employed and the self-employed and the employed bar. What is something about your experience, particularly as a junior, that you learned about the career that you didn't anticipate or that surprised you, where you're like, oh, wow, okay, so that's what happens when you're a junior? If you could provide insight, please.
I think for me, at the self-employed bar, it's kind of, oh, that was going to be a really not a great comment. Okay. I think learning on the job is the main thing. The self-employed bar really does just throw you in at the deep end. When I started with the 36 group, I just had cases appear in my diary, and it was for me to figure out exactly how to go about them. So we did get legal experience through chambers at the government, but that's 6 months of shadowing. You don't do a practicing second six as you do in a regular chambers. So I think learning on the job for me was the biggest surprise, and just how much learning is done in your first few years of practice. You are not expected to be a fully formed barrister the day that pupillage ends. That's just not how it works. But I think that is equally as applicable to the employed bar.
Just say you do take some instructions in second six and to go on your feet for government,
yeah,
but you must be instructed by government to
yes.
do it. So which actually leads to the example I was thinking of in chambers, where so the first day, and my supervisor, right, let's get you in court. Where's a case we can sort of give you to go and do the hearing? And then I had to sort of say, oh wait, ethical dilemma. I can't take private instructions, even though I'm seconded. I am still employed by the Crown, and therefore the only people I can take instruction from to go and do advocacy was the government. So whenever I was in chambers, sort of doing the work for my supervisor on different things, I was also taking instruction to go into court on immigration litigation matters. I mean, I suppose I come at it from a slightly different point of view because, most of my experience by definition has been in-house within government. And whenever I was working in the Department of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, I was working on some legislation on a private member's bill. So I was leading on a piece of legislation which required, from a very early stage, being in the room with the Secretary of State and with clients, for example, going into Parliament, both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, to support my policy clients, and then the minister who was standing at the dispatch box taking questions. But also the piece of legislation I was working on just happened to be particularly contentious with a very vocal sort of interested grouping within Parliament. So actually every conceivable machination to sort of amend, sort of slow down progress of the bill through Parliament. There were things I was dealing with which, in my limited experience at the time, but sort of not completely from an uneducated point of view, seemed to be without precedent. And I think that's the really, as Emma was alluding to earlier on, I think the really cool thing about working in government is from a very early stage, you are working on complex stuff, you're working on high profile stuff that is in the news. And there is something, that piece of legislation, for example, I have a cartoon that was drawn in the Times, and I have it have it framed in my home office, not the home office, my home office wall, because that's how cool I am. But it was good. There was something to see, something I'd been working on, sort of satirized in print. So there's those sorts of things that you just don't necessarily expect.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Cool. Raised hands. This lady in the white on the right, please.
Hi. I'm curious about what happens to barristers who never ever get pupilages. I know you were both successful, but what happens to people who, Jack, for example, if you had never ever gotten your pupillage at the GLD, do people just disappear into the ether? Do you eventually get some sort of exemption from the BSB, or what happens if you just never get one?
So a few points. I think there are. I was thinking earlier on some question. Have you seen the film The Long Walk yet?
Not yet. No.
So for The Long Walk is a film in the cinema at the moment. It's an adaptation of an early Stephen King novel, and the idea behind the story is 100 young men are selected, and they have to go on a marathon without end. And if you stop for longer than 10 seconds, you're shot dead. And you sort of, they keep going until it's the last one standing. It's a very dark metaphor, I appreciate. But at times, it does feel like you are running that sort of marathon. It's like, it is like how much, there are times whenever you question, what have I got myself into? Why am I still going? And the reality is, sorry, this is taking a really sinister turn. I really don't mean it to. I think that the point is sort of only you will know if this is something that you really want to do. And yes, there will be people who will probably get lost in the ether, not necessarily because they've been taken out the back or something like that, but because they've decided, oh, actually, this is not for me, or I've sort of made a sideways move into something else, or I've decided to do something else completely, and they'll find that they have really successful careers doing something else. Then you'll get the gluttons for punishment like me, who will just keep going and will not take no for an answer. In my case, I did get dispensation from the bars. Was it the Bar Council, Bar Standards Board? Bar Standards Board, yeah. I should know that. But basically, when you get called to the bar, the rules at the moment are there's a 5-year clock that starts to tick. And if you haven't secured, or you haven't started pupillage within that time, technically speaking, your qualification lapses. However, you can make an application and present evidence. The main thing is that if there are people who have disappeared in the ether, who have given up, they're not keeping their legal knowledge going, and that's, I think, the methodology behind it. Whereas I was working in the legal sector, and I had secured pupillage. It was just the time it was starting, so it was a relatively straightforward process, and actually the BSB, the hotline, you sort of phone them and ask for advice, and they're very approachable, very friendly, so it wasn't a difficulty. But what I would say is you've got the statistics, and they are sort of they can be really off-putting if you were to sort of pay too much attention to them. And I don't know if you still do it, but there's an exercise that's sort of one of the introductory evenings where somebody at one of these events typically gets everyone's given a number when they come in, and then everyone's told to stand up and say, right, numbers 1 through X, sit down. That's the number of you who are not passing the bar course. Numbers 1 through X, sit down. That's the number that's not going to get pupillage. Numbers 1 through X, sit down. That's the number of you not getting tenancy. Congratulations to those of you who have made it to the end of the long walk. You're the ones that have got tenancy. But I think you treat them with a healthy respect. This is obviously a competitive profession, but if you really want this, please do not give up. And you will find that there are other things that you can do to enhance your prospects year on year. You will do interesting things and come back stronger. And I think I'm not the only example of this. I know so many people, and I think it's increasingly rare for people to get pupillage straight out of the gate. And most people sort of have a few goes at it. And I've mentored some really talented people who are maybe sort of 3-4 goes before they're getting pupillage. But in a way, in my humble opinion, you are perhaps better for it because you're ready and you sort of understand sort of how tricky it is. But all I can say is, like, please don't give up. And if you do find yourself in that sort of wilderness period, take the opportunities, because you never know what will come of them. They might make you thinking about a different area of practice. It might be, or it might, you might find something that's completely, separate, and that you enjoy that more. But life's short, so take the opportunities and don't give up, because if you want it enough and you know that no one's going to put you off, there's no reason why you can't have success in this profession.
Cool. This lady over here has the microphone, so if you want to ask a question. If you have a question, please keep your hand raised so we know to pass the microphone to you next. And also, because we're coming up to the last, 5 minutes, we'll try and do some sort of like more rapid fire sort of answers and stuff as well. So, yes.
So my question is a bit linked to the previous question, actually, because I'm a law conversion student. And I come from a commercial background as marketing director. So my goal is to become a commercial barrister and leverage some of the experience I had in mergers and acquisitions and so on. But I was talking to an employment advisor yesterday from the university, and I was actively discouraged from becoming a barrister and actually follow the solicitor's route. Because when you look at some of the chambers, commercial chambers specifically, there are a lot of barristers, as was mentioned before, who came from Oxford, Cambridge, etc., which is not my background. So I do have a first-class degree, but it's from outside of the UK. So do you have a general advice for someone in terms of social mobility, or maybe from a non-standard background? Should you still pursue this career? Because it seems like it's incredibly difficult, even more so for those who are not from the UK.
I think my rapid answer would be yes. The bar is getting a lot better. Yes, at the commercial side, there perhaps is a bit of a hangover of the Oxbridge first and then BCL. But every area of the bar is improving. And I think, as Jack just said, if you do want to become a commercial barrister, I wouldn't be put off by statistics or advice, and I'd still go for it.
Just as a very quick sort of add-on as well. I mean, bear in mind that your end goal, getting to the bar, there's not necessarily one way of getting there. So it might be that it is, with your experience, it might make more sense to become a commercial solicitor, then get higher rights of audience, and then transfer to the bar. There are ways in which that can happen. And the metaphor I often give is that, if you think about, where your end destination is, the most straightforward way is that you shoot up the motorway, but actually sometimes you may just have to take the country roads, but you'll sort of stop, pit stops along the way and find things that are of interest and that actually make the journey a bit more worthwhile. So please don't be put off. There's no reason why you can't do it, but I think you're right to think about sort of, what moves you need to make to get to where you want to go.
Thank you.
Cool. So can you pass that microphone down to this lady with the glasses here? Then you can ask your question while that's happening. Yeah.
So I'm a final year student, And my question is, so I want to get into property law and probably commercial. I'm not too sure about that. I am in my final year. I have specialized in some commercial law modules. So my question is, I'm not too sure whether or not I want to be like an employed barrister or self-employed, but I would like to ask, like, what's the difference between like your day-to-day activities for like an in-house barrister and like a the other one, like when you're like not really doing much work in court, you're kind of behind the scenes?
You know far more about commercial law than I do.
Do I? That's
Where
frightening.
are you
That's
seconded?
That's true. I was seconded to commercial chambers, and I was in government legal department's commercial law. I mean, in terms of the difference, I mean, bear in mind, commercial law, I think, sort of, like, certainly for me, I probably had an idea that commercial law was dealing with sort of massive sort of FTSE 100 companies and things, when actually commercial law sort of encompasses, small businesses, all that sort of thing. Within government, commercial law is largely, or in my experience, is largely to do with procurement and contracts. So it's definitely much more paper-based, I think, anyway, but that there are obviously sort of opportunities for advocacy. It may just be that you're not in court, for example, as often as you would be a criminal practitioner, for example. I'm probably slightly out of my depth in answering your question, because I don't specialize in that area of law. But I suppose with you're working in house, I should have said at the beginning that sort of typically there are two disciplines within government. There's advisory work where you're co-located in-house within different government departments, for example, advising on the making of law or legislation. And then there's the contentious work where you are defending government, for example, in judicial reviews or private law claims, or working in public inquiries. So some of that can be, public inquiries, for example, is very document heavy. So you are analysing documents and evidence with a view, if you're on an inquiry team, to sort of, making findings of fact to inform recommendations, so that if something's gone wrong, here's what you can do to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen again. And in commercial, in my commercial experience, it was very much about sort of working through, for example, framework contracts, or working with people who were bidding for contracts and making sure that process was fair, and then sort of carrying out, so giving legal advice on the analysis that went into selecting the bidder. So I don't know if I'm getting to the heart of what the question that you're asking, because obviously my experience in chambers is much more limited. But that's my experience in-house in that environment.
I have
Sorry, I'm so sorry. It's just like,
It's okay.
no, please, go. I gotta keep track in my head.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm super interested in public law, and specifically public inquiries on both self-employed and employed side of the bar. And I wanted to ask, am I correct in the perception that this area of law is slightly less accessible for juniors than maybe other sides of law?
I mean, I've been working in this area for a year. I mean, if you come in house and you work within GLD, and you go to we have a public inquiries division, so you've got teams working on different things. You've like a whole massive sort of team working on the COVID inquiry. You've got a big part of my team has been working on the post office inquiry. I did a couple of ad hoc things on that. I mean, but I was part of a smaller team representing the Department of Health as a core participant in the Thirlwall inquiry, which is about the hospital where Lucy Letby was found guilty of murdering a number of babies and attempting to murder a number of others. And I was part of one team, and we worked. I've worked, and then I'm working on a couple of other things, and typically the panel counsel who we're instructing externally to work with us and represent us can vary from sort of silk to sort of, I don't know how I don't expect people necessarily to be familiar with panel counsel, but if you want to do government work, you typically apply to become part of what's known as panel, and it's sort of ranked A, B, C, A being the most senior, and then you have a junior scheme, which I think you're part of, aren't you, Armin? So I'll let you fill in the gaps. And, you know, I've worked with sort of Silk, you know, A panel down to C panel, and just it depends on how big the inquiry is, how much work is involved. And, you know, it might be that if it's something that is particularly controversial or newsworthy, that you're going to have the more experienced people in being the shop window in terms of the one being out doing the advocacy, but you probably also have more junior folks on your team as well, you know, giving advice behind the scenes, reporting back day to day. So it's very collaborative, the environment we're working in, both within my team, within GLD itself, and then the fact that we work with people in chambers who are instructed by us. So if you want to ask, I should say, conscious of time, I'm hanging around. If anyone wants to grab me to ask any further questions afterwards, you're free to do so, but hopefully that helps for now.
Yeah, junior panel counsel can also do some inquiries work. So I have a friend who is on junior panel and is assisting with the COVID inquiry, but will be doing very similar work to some of the more junior lawyers within the GLD at that team. But the work's there, but I think you are right that it's probably quite hard to build a practice primarily in public inquiries at a very junior level. But again, I'll be hanging around after as well if you'd like to chat about it.
Perfect, thank you.
Could you pass that mic to this gentleman with the tie? Thank you. Ask a question.
I have a bit more of a hypothetical question. So I'm a year 2 LLB student, and I was wondering if you both had the chance to return to this level and sort of retrospectively with what you know now, would you have done something differently? And I asked specifically, Jack, I know trade secrets, but as part of the scholarship committee, what would you do differently? And for Emma, as somebody who also envisions a life at the public bar, what would you have done differently at the stage?
Thought initially you were going to ask me, would I just completely rewrite my entire career choices to do? What would you do differently? Pursue a different career? I thought I didn't know if that's what you were getting at. I'm assuming not. I think that probably, to be honest, I was probably a bit complacent whenever I was studying university, because without meaning to sound immodest, you know, I sort of, you know, I was always strong academically, and I think that whenever I didn't have sort of like school teachers sort of really supervising what you're doing day to day, and it's much more independent learning whenever you're at university, I probably took my foot off the pedal a bit just with complacency. And if I knew then what I know now about just how much easier it can be just to maximize your potential early on by getting the marks, it just avoids some awkward conversations like, why haven't you performed so well in this topic? So that's the brutally honest answer I can give, sort of in 10 seconds, if that helps.
I think for me, not the opposite, but opposite in vibe is I just take my time more. So I did a straight law degree, I did a year postgraduate degree, I did the bar course, I started pupillage, and I've been at the bar since. That wasn't necessary. So as much as it can feel like you want to get to the bar as soon as you can, I don't regret any of the choices I've made. I'm very grateful for where I am now. I love this career, and I think it's the best job in the world. I did not need to have started at the age I did. I could have gone and traveled or done a different job and seen some other things. So I think I may be less of a rush to get to the bar. As I say, it's not a regret. I'm very happy with how things have turned out, but there was no great rush.
Just because of the time, I'm going to pick the last 4 people. So we got you, then we got you, and then we're going to have you, and then you'll be the last one. Thank you. And then, yeah, if these guys are hanging about, you can have chats with them afterwards more informally. Go for it.
Thank you. As someone who's interested in the government legal department, what are the sort of internship shadowing opportunities that they offer, so that when you do apply, you can say, well, look, this is how I've shown I'm interested, sort of things like that?
Yeah, so you'll appreciate that because this government is quite restricted on what opportunities are available. So I'm not in a position, for example, to offer many pupillages in the way that so I'm not going to volunteer you for that, but in a way that self-employed barristers may be able to offer those opportunities. However, the government legal department does run a summer, I think it's called summer diversity scheme, which is a sort of a placement. So I think if you Google other websites are available. Sort of GLD summer diversity scheme. It's designed to help sort of make up for the fact that you can't sort of generally walk in and just sort of do a work placement. It's sort of I think it's quite a good program because it's specifically designed for work experience, students. So rather than rocking up with a barrister who maybe forgot that you were coming and sort of scrambling around to find you work, it's sort of quite a structured program, I think, and I think that the aim is to give you exposure to a few different areas as well. So I would suggest looking into that if you can.
Thank you. In your opinion, what would you say the biggest challenge the bar is currently facing, and how does that affect me as an aspiring barrister?
Ooh.
The biggest challenge the world is facing. You're going to make me go first.
Talk about Lizzie Harman's report, which is quite depressing.
No, I don't really.
Exactly. Biggest challenge. So I was just saying that there is something which is quite sobering reading, which was Harriet Harman had been commissioned to draft a report, which was released a few weeks ago, and it was about bullying and sexual harassment at the bar. And I'm not saying that to alarm people, but again, it was one of those things where you read it and you think there is still work to be done in this area, and that sort of behavior needs to be called out. And that's why I'm flagging it now, because it is, that is a tangible challenge that has been identified and is being taken very seriously by the Bar Council. I suppose I'm not saying that, in my opinion, this is the biggest challenge, but I know that, obviously people are talking about AI and to what extent AI might, I think the message that we often get is AI will enhance the jobs we do by making us more productive. It will help us assist. It won't necessarily replace us, but obviously the proof is still in the pudding, because we're still not entirely up to speed with products that are already here and that are developing at pace. So I've heard quite a bit on that sort of thing recently, but that's not bar specific. I suppose it could be applicable anywhere else. So that's a couple of things, but not obviously meant to put anyone off.
Yeah, I think that I'll develop on both points. So I think in relation to bullying, harassment, and sexual assault at the bar, if you are interested in those issues, the report is very readable. It does not make for great reading, but I would say that the bar is getting much better. These issues are still around, but I think the thing that is improving is people are way more willing to talk about them. The Bar Standards Board is also way more willing to engage with publishing reports. The Bar Council does frequent, very good reports on these things. But just asking colleagues and even support within the Inns, I think has improved a lot. So hopefully how will it affect you? One, I hope that it won't. Two, if it does, there are amazing support networks available within the bar, through your Inns, through the Bar Council and through your colleagues. In relation to AI, there's interesting case law developing. I'm sorry, I've made it a legal thing again, but there is interesting case law developing in both the housing and immigration context about barristers using AI inappropriately in pleadings and then lying to the court and saying that they weren't created through AI hallucinations. So if you do fancy reading into that a little, I'll be around and I can give you the case names if you fancy some homework.
Excellent. Okay, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this. I wanted to ask about the master. So from what I understand, to do a bar course, it's not mandatory to do masters, but from what I understand, both of you did it. How helpful was it? Do you think it is worth it? And later on, when you are employed or asking for pupillage, does it give much benefit that you did study a master's degree? Thank you.
I think it was a huge key for me, but I think that the key was that it was a postgraduate research degree. I do think that was more helpful than doing a taught master's. completely just from my own perspective, but that's because that enabled me to talk about research skills on applications, self-discipline, structuring your own time, and those were all skills that are required at the bar. So it wasn't so much what that degree taught me, but it was what completing that degree to a good standard was able to show about me on an application. So I don't think a master's is mandatory at all, but I do think it can enhance an application.
Can I just check? Are you referring to the master's sort of top up on the bar course program?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I find it very difficult to sort of give a diplomatic
Did you do
answer to this.
that?
No.
Okay.
So I'm trying to be diplomatic and as nice about this as possible. I am not convinced that paying an institution an extra, however much it is, to do an essay and have your bar course topped up as a master's is as valuable as it is sold to students considering it. I think that if you want to do a master's program, studying a year-long master's as its own thing is probably a more worthwhile investment of your time. And just to flag that interview panels know the difference between the two, which is not to denigrate anyone who has, you know, if you have the luxury of time and you can sit and get an extra qualification, by all means do it. I suppose I'm just sort of be under no illusions that people are familiar with the difference between the two. I think having studied a master's program, I studied my master's in human rights, and it really helped me to develop sort of a deeper understanding of areas of law that were of particular interest to me. And I think it helped inform the fact that I was then interested in public law. And it helped, I think, secure my scholarship to go and work in Strasbourg, because whenever I was being interviewed here and asked certain questions like, well, I've written a dissertation on this, so let's talk about free speech, as the question at the time was. So I really don't mean that in a sort of a downbeat way. If you are currently, you know, studying, you know, that program, I think it's just be wary, I think.
Last question.
Okay, hi. So how or where does one secure an opportunity or an offer for the pupillage? Or like how we can minimize the fact that someone might not get it? Like,
Well, so every pupillage must be advertised on the pupillage gateway, which is a bit like sort of the barrister's UCAS, if UCAS is still a thing. Is UCAS still a thing?
It is. Yes. It is.
I'm getting old. Yeah, so every pupillage must be advertised on this service called Pupillage Gateway. Probably most chambers will host their application on the gateway itself, so you would submit it through that. Other chambers, government legal department, will have its own online, you know, thing through which to submit your application, but it's still, the details must still be advertised. And on, if the gateway is similar as it was whenever I was applying, you can, you know, search by areas of the country, you can search by areas of practice and help to narrow down, perhaps, if you're not sure instinctively, but you know you want to do this area of law and you know you want to practice in London or Manchester, Newcastle or something, you can sort of punch those filters in and it will bring you up suggested places to start your research. And then it's just a case of, yeah, I don't know at what stage you're eligible to start applying, but you can typically, you don't have to wait until you're on the bar course or until you've passed the bar course.
okay, does it help if you're already doing some legal work with the firm maybe, or do you get better preferences to be offered the pupillage? No.
I mean, I think ultimately, as we've reflected throughout, it's how you sort of sell each of those experiences. What I'll sort of, so you'll all be conscious to get on and enjoy the rest of your evening, but remember the form is, the form will be read by somebody from top to bottom. And so the whole thing, there should be a narrative that flows through it. And so there are different sections of the form. There will be an employment section where you can set out both your legal and non-legal work experience. And I think the important thing is there, say what you've done, what you've learned, and what you're going to do, and then sort of you get that part answered in that part of the form, and then focus on the other questions that come later on. But I can't speculate as to what is going to secure you the pupillage. It's what evidence you present and how persuasive you are whenever you go into interview.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So Alexis just had to leave quickly, so he's left me in charge to wrap up. Thank you all so much for coming and attending and taking it in. Thank you to Emma and to Jack for being here. They will. Let's go round of applause. I like that. They will be here hanging around for a little bit if you do have any other questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Outreach or scholarships. If you have any other general questions as well, we'll be here.